The royal family is facing its most profound crisis in a generation. The scandal surrounding Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has done more than just end one man's public career. It's detonated a constitutional bomb, forcing King Charles to redraw the map of the modern monarchy. For Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, watching from California, this is far from a distant family drama. It raises deeply uncomfortable questions for them. The ground is shifting. The very titles that form the bedrock of their global brand, Duke and Duchess of Sussex, are now the subject of intense speculation. They are navigating a political minefield where every move is scrutinized under a new, more ruthless set of rules. The question is no longer if King Charles will continue to reform the crown, but how? And what does that mean for the Sussexes, whose future seems tied to their royal status? Tonight, we're asking, is the status of Harry and Meghan's royal titles at risk? I'm Jonathan Harris, and we have two of the sharpest royal observers with us. Dr. Anna Scott, a royal historian and author of Crown and Crisis, and Robert Taylor, royal correspondent for the Global Press. Welcome to you both. Let's start with the event that triggered all this. In October of 2025, King Charles took a step many thought was unthinkable. Robert, can you just walk us through what happened to the man formerly known as Prince Andrew? It was breathtaking, Jonathan. For years, the palace tried to contain the Andrew problem, but the pressure became unbearable. King Charles initiated what the palace called a formal process to remove his remaining titles and honors. In reality, it was a complete severance. He is now, for all intents and purposes, a private citizen known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The palace even served formal notice for him to surrender the lease on his longtime home, Royal Lodge. This wasn't just a slap on the wrist. This was the monarchy performing surgery on itself to save the institution. And the historical context here is so important. The last time anything like this happened was because of the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917, which was used to remove peerages from aristocrats who fought against Britain in World War I. For the king to take action of a similar magnitude shows the sheer scale of the threat the palace felt. This wasn't just about Andrew's personal judgment. It was about the scandal corroding public trust in the crown itself. The palace statement was very pointed, emphasizing their thoughts were with the victims and survivors of abuse. It was a strategic move to reclaim the moral high ground. And since then, the situation has escalated. On his 66th birthday, February 19, 2026, he was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office related to the Epstein files. He was released under investigation, but the palace's reaction was cold and decisive. Robert, what are your sources saying? My sources describe the king as being more determined than ever to protect the credibility of the institution. There's a real sense that the Andrew scandal was a wake-up call. We're hearing constant chatter about sweeping reforms for a slimmed-down monarchy. This has fueled intense speculation about how far these reforms might go and who else might be affected. This is where the minefield truly lies. By creating such a dramatic and public precedent with Andrew, the king has shown he has a powerful new tool, but using it a second time is incredibly risky. The circumstances are completely different, yet the palace has now demonstrated it's willing to take the ultimate step when it feels the institution is under threat. And that brings us directly to Harry and Meghan. Dr. Scott, are their titles of Duke and Duchess of Sussex genuinely at risk? Well, that's the big question, isn't it? The threat is complex. On one hand, the argument from some royal commentators is straightforward. Titles are tied to service. If you're no longer performing duties for the crown, why should you retain the highest honor it can bestow? It's a compelling, almost corporate argument for a modern monarchy. Exactly. And every time Harry and Meghan announce a new media deal or a commercial partnership, it fuels that argument. From a palace perspective, they may see a commercialization of royal status that they can't control, and the Andrew precedent gives them a potential, though radioactive, solution. But here's the paradox, Jonathan. In a strange way, Andrew's situation gives Harry and Meghan a powerful shield. Any move against them now would immediately be framed as the palace equating their choice to step back with Andrew's scandal. Their team would rightly ask, Are you punishing us for seeking a private life in the same way you punished a man entangled in a criminal investigation? That comparison would be devastating for the monarchy. It would look petty and vindictive. Robert is exactly right. Constitutionally, the situations are night and day. Andrew was forced out. Harry and Meghan chose to leave. Also, removing a peerage like a dukedom isn't something the king can just do with a wave of his hand. It requires an act of parliament. Can you imagine the political chaos? The government would have to debate whether the Sussex's media career justifies using a legislative tool with historical links to punishing enemies of the state. That's a political circus the king would surely want to avoid. So the king's in a bind. He's created a precedent he may be afraid to use. He's in a strategic standoff. He has a new, very big stick, but if he uses it on Harry, it could blow up in his face. That's likely why we're seeing a war of whispers instead of open action. Palace sources are briefing about reforms, floating the idea and testing public reaction. They seem to be trying to create a climate where removing the Sussex's titles feels like a logical next step in modernizing, rather than a personal attack on the king's son. So while the palace plays this long game, what is the Sussex's strategy? Robert, they've been conspicuously quiet about the Andrew affair. Their silence is deafening, and it's completely deliberate. PR experts I've spoken to say it's the only sane move. A source reportedly close to the couple said any comment would be immediately framed as them settling scores. In his memoir, Harry already expressed frustration with comparisons between his situation and his uncle's, which he viewed as unjust. But he knows saying anything now would be a catastrophic error. So instead, they appear to be pursuing a strategy of strategic silence and active separation. It's a classic crisis management technique. You don't engage with the negative story. You create your own alternative narrative. They're trying to build a brand so powerful and independent that, if the titles were ever removed, it would feel like a mere footnote. Their foundation work, their media ventures, it's all part of an effort to make Harry and Meghan a bigger brand than the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They want to make the titles irrelevant before the palace can take them away. And part of that separation involves carefully managing their public image, doesn't it? Absolutely. It's a brutal calculation, but in this environment, sentimentality is a luxury. They're in survival mode. They know their brand is built on progressive causes and a certain moral clarity. Any association, however tangential, with the toxicity of the Andrews scandal is a risk. That means making incredibly difficult choices. While Harry has reportedly remained close to his cousins, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, he and Meghan must be hyper-aware of optics. And this just highlights the fundamental difference in their goals. The royal family is trying to save a 1,000-year-old institution. Harry and Meghan are trying to build a 21st-century global media brand. Right now, those two goals are in direct conflict. The institution demands conformity and a unified front. The brand demands visibility and a distinct narrative. The Andrews scandal has simply thrown that conflict into its sharpest focus yet. Looking ahead, Dr. Scott, what does this crisis tell us about King Charles's vision for the monarchy? Is this slimmed-down model the future? I believe King Charles has always wanted a more streamlined monarchy, but the Andrew affair has forced his hand, turning a slow evolution into a rapid, painful revolution. The idea of a huge family of working and non-working royals, all with titles and privileges, now looks dangerously out of date. It creates too many points of failure, too many potential scandals. The new model seems to be a core of senior, active working royals, with everyone else being, essentially, a private citizen who happens to be related to the king. The age of the royal hanger-on seems to be over, and that has huge implications, not just for Harry, but for the next generation. Will Archie and Lilibet, as grandchildren of the monarch, be treated as a prince and princess in any real way, or will that just be a historical footnote? King Charles is being forced to define what a royal is in the 21st century. His actions suggest the definition is getting much narrower. Someone who is full-time, on duty, and directly serving the crown. Everyone else is out. But doesn't this risk creating two royal families? The official, palace-sanctioned one in the UK, and this rival, celebrity court in California? That is the ultimate fear for the palace, according to some experts. It might be why the king is reluctant to actually pull the trigger on the titles. He may still hope for some kind of relationship with his son, but at the same time, The institution can't tolerate the current ambiguity. It's a standoff. The palace is sending warning shots with these leaks about reforms, and the Sussexes are building their defenses by strengthening their independent brand. The endgame here is completely uncertain. Could the Sussexes voluntarily relinquish their titles as a final act of separation to control the narrative themselves? Or could another controversy one day force the king to ask Parliament to act? What's clear is that the current situation isn't sustainable. The royal minefield has been laid. The Andrew scandal wasn't the end of the crisis. It was just the beginning of a new, and much more dangerous, chapter for the House of Windsor. A dangerous new chapter indeed. Harry and Meghan are in an almost impossible position. To protect their brand, they have to distance themselves from the very institution that gives them their unique global standing. But in doing so, they risk provoking a monarch who has already shown he's willing to take drastic action to protect the crown. But what do you think? Are discussions about removing titles from non-working royals a justified reform? Or would such a move be a vindictive act against the king's own son? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay up to date on this story, make sure you subscribe and click the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching.